Can he produce something special to keep the Red Bulls playoff run alive? Godoy in with a challenge. They've got a penalty. They've got a penalty in the 92nd minute. Godoy penalised. Luquinhas down, and the New York Red Bulls from the spot have got a chance to save their season and keep their playoff run alive.
Well, Luquinhas, he's so good with his tight control, showing the ball, then taken away. And Godoy, it's a penalty. Sticks a foot in. Just watch here. As he gets inside the box, is he in? He's in the box. And it's a foul on Godoy. Doesn't get the ball, gets a massive opportunity.
Omir Fernandez, Elias Manuel, the only players who've taken penalties in the regular season for them. They're both off the field. So it's going to fall to the man from Chatham, New Jersey, 21-year-old John Tolkien. The chance to take the Red Bulls into the postseason, and he's done it for New York. It could well be Red October again.
He's taking his game to another level. And Tolkien, you need big personality to take on the pressure, and it doesn't come any bigger than this man. The left back, he'll take the weight of the world.
Here at Geodis Park, it's Pico, still time, in it goes. In front of Corridel, it's Sean Nealis to clear. Referee's got his whistle in his mouth. The New York Red Bulls have done it again. 14 consecutive years in the postseason. Troy Lessane's team have done it.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 91 of New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, Gary Redmond. Lanier Badmus will not be with us. He had a personal issue they had to deal with, and he'll be with us in 2 weeks. Of course, Mark Coates will be with us, and of course, special guest, one of the beat writers for the New York Red Bulls, of course, is Daniel Rebain. He'll be joining us shortly. Matter of fact, he'll just be our third guy coming in tonight, and we're going to talk about all things what we've been talking about this week. One thing that we're going to discuss is how the Red Bulls, as you just saw in a little bit of the preview, how they survive American relegation, a.k.a. the playoffs. Yes, we're kind of tweaking all about that. Of course, naturally, we're going to talk about Nashville. We're going to do the recap on Nashville FC and, of course, New York Red Bulls and how they managed to walk into Music City and got out with a win and got their ticket punched. And on top of that, we have a home game this Wednesday night, and that happens to be with Charlotte FC. That will take place on at the Cathedral at 7:30 kickoff. We always hoping it would be 8 o'clock, but Major League Soccer had other ideas. So it's going to be a 7:30 game, and we're going to get you guys prepared for that. And also the Gotham girls. Oh, yeah. Big doings down there in Cary, North Carolina. They caged the Courage. They beat them. Okay, so now they move into the semifinals, and we're going to do a quick little recap on that. And they get to take on the Portland Thorns, of course, up there in Rose City. And of course, naturally, final. We're going to have our final word and match predictions on Wednesday night. Should be again with a wild card Wednesday. And hopefully the Red Bulls, remember it's a one and done situation, which means if they win, of course, they take on FC Cincinnati, which had the number 1 seed. And of course, it's going to be a best of 3. It's going to be a throwback to the early days in the playoffs of Major League Soccer when it was the best of 3. More of that, of course, after the second half. And of course, naturally, if you miss if you happen to miss, of course, the our show tonight, which is right now going on live, remember you can always catch it, of course, on our YouTube channel and Spotify the very next day. You can also check out our previous episodes there as well. This is episode 91, season number 3, and hopefully by the end of the year, I promise you that all of the episodes from the first season to the last will all be uploaded for your listening and viewer pleasure. And speaking of which, of course, we like to think that we want this show to be the best out there. And this is where we could, in a sense, use your help. If you have any hot takes, you have any suggestions, you have any comments or questions about it, after all, this is your show. So by all means, please send your, whatever that you have our way. We do have an email address at rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. So We had a terrific weekend. I mean, didn't we? Well, some people felt that me and my Giants won, Gotham won, Red Bulls won. Everything is fine and dandy, except for my cousin up in the Bronx. He's singing the blues, literally, because his team didn't make the cut. Oh well. We'll worry about that next year. But first, we're going to talk about everything that's went on during the last couple of days with two of my co-hosts, and of course, our special guest, Mr. Daniel Rebain, otherwise known as Private McBain. He's been scouting both New York Red Bull II and the New York Red Bulls, and we're going to be questioning them, ask questions, of course, not only New York Red Bull II, but this upcoming Wednesday, which suddenly at first, we were sitting at home Saturday going, you know what? This was our last game of the year. We were putting away our, AV equipment and everything. At least I was putting my AV equipment. And then Annabelle Godoy happened. and next thing
the miracle in Music City. That's what we're going to call it.
If we are we going to call that a meal? We're going to debate that, of course.
Was,
yeah, but
I wasn't sure about the call when it happened, but you know me and how I like to pick apart referees, and there were some questionable calls.
Let's start with that.
The game, but
let's start with that. Before we get to the penalty, let's start with that. It was a testy match. Okay, there was fouls all over the place, but we knew that, Mark, coming in. We knew that this was going to be one of those matches where first mistake wins, right? So luckily, Red Bulls didn't make very much mistakes, but there was a whole lot of fouls all over the place. So how did you feel about the official's performance at this point?
For the most part, I think he tried to keep everything in check. There were a couple calls I questioned. Reyes ended up getting a yellow card, and we were at a point where we had both of our center backs on yellows. And that concerned me because it was early. Sean Nealis looked a little lost a couple times. When you don't know where Mukhtar is and you look over your right shoulder and he's like 10 yards off your left shoulder, you're not really paying attention. So, there were a couple fouls here and there. I think the ref, for the most part, did a fairly reasonable job. We've seen a lot worse this season. There were, like I said, there were a couple I sort of just shook my head.
We're gonna keep our mouths shut because Dan and I don't want to get fined. Most of those cats know our names, so yeah.
I was gonna say, as you were mentioning, of course, the Giants winning. My wife happens to be a fan of the team from Washington, and one of their players is taking a hefty fine for the F-bomb and S-bomb laden interview he gave after he was walking out of the locker room on Sunday. And I had sent the link to my wife, and she was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Yeah, that cost him about $100,000. I was like, or maybe $50,000. But listen, like I said, we've seen so many really badly called games. For the most part, like I said, I didn't have a problem with the way he called the game. I questioned a couple of the yellow cards that got handed out. I said, especially like the one on Duncan seemed a little ticky-tacky. But, it was what it was. But I think in the end, I watched that replay 4 or 5 times. And you watch it from one side, all right, maybe it wasn't a PK. But if you're going to call it and it's in the box, it has to be a PK. And listen, we've been bitten by that how many times over the course of this season? I see Daniel nodding his head, but I think we can all agree. How many times you made mention to it. It was who made the first mistake. Well, we were at 90+2 when the first true mistake ended up happening.
That's right there. Yeah, and
that's you can't. The referee was 10 yards away from you. You can't do that with the ref watching. I'm like, listen, I give all credit to Luquinhas. The guy stayed on his feet for the most part. You saw him driving down the left side many times. Wasn't getting up, wasn't crying, wasn't complaining to the ref. He might give him a look, but kept himself in check. And that's sort of, like somebody had sent me a text and said, "Are you sure this guy's from Brazil?" And I'm like, all right, that's like, I'm not.
Well, I mean, he kind of learned his lesson after 3 games ago by the way, same ref ignored him. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, when he kept following the box and one, I just gave him one look and said, "Look, man,
that's it.
You're not suckering.
You're not getting it.
You're not suckering me to an easy PK. That's not going to happen." Well, and every targeted foul on him, he just turned and said he just gave him the no blood, no foul treatment. Now, Daniel, in your case, you're checking this out. Okay. What was you expecting coming in the match? Let's talk about that for a second.
I mean, all right. So last game of the year, they need a win. And how long? 20 minutes in, Charlotte already scores against Miami. So now they definitely need a win. So you're thinking, all right, we need a goal from somewhere. We're like, we haven't scored many goals. Recently, though, we scored, but in a pressure cook situation, where is this going to come from? And for the most part, until we got to the second half, nothing was coming through. Obviously, time's ticking down. We're starting to get more shots, but it didn't look good until that last moment. So, thank you, Godoy, for tackling Luquinhas us in the box and giving us a pen.
The thing that I was expecting right off the bat at the match is because the thing that concerned me right after kickoff was how flat they looked. I was wondering if it was this was the question that I neglected to ask Troy during the media availability. Was it a microcosm of how Nashville was playing them, or were they that slow stepping off the plane? Omir, I mean, he tried to give it a go, but he was sluggish all over the pitch. I think he took a knock during practice, and it showed. He wasn't as quick. He wasn't as sharp. In many cases, in some cases, he didn't engage very much. Like you would see him, most of the time, he was pitbull mode. Okay, going in there, attacking. Not so much in this game, and it had me very concerned. I was like, okay, either he's going to make a mistake or someone's going to have to take him out pretty soon. Well, he was substituted. But the crazy thing about Drew Yearwood, okay, he's brought in as a defensive midfielder. But what does he do? He attacks all the damn time. So it's almost like he forgets his assignment, what he's supposed to do, and he does the complete opposite. And in this case, Mark, it worked. Okay. In most cases, often than none, you sometimes sit there in your seats going, okay, dude, you do realize you're supposed to play defense, right? So what are you doing bum rushing down the other end of the pitch?
Yeah. Why are you in the other box? Listen, I watched him last year. There was the issue with him and Struber. They just butted heads, and obviously they didn't get along. Struber came out and said the reason he wasn't with the team was because he wasn't up to fitness level. And then the next night he goes 90 minutes with the second team. So, is he fit or is he not fit? What's going on? It's more because it's how he handles himself and how he plays. And I think that he's approached it a lot better this year. I sometimes think he's wanting to do more and he's trying almost too hard. Yeah. And then that's when he gets himself into bad positions and bad places. And he's given away a few fouls in his time with us. But like I said, that ball, the ball he hit didn't miss by much.
No. And that was a warning shot. I mean, that came real close.
And that was the thing. Like the first 20 minutes, we survived because, like I was saying, when we were talking pre-show, how many times did Nealis lose Mukhtar? Yeah. I mean, the guy's out in space, 10 yards off.
That was a concern.
Yeah. How many times, I was sitting there going, oh God, and he's on side too. And I'm like,
and he's on.
Yeah. But thank God, we had Cornell was up to the task. That save, I mean, he only got a couple fingertips on that ball.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, and then it hit the post.
Think about that for a second. He misses with those fingertips. It's 1-0 Nashville.
Yeah, 20 minutes in.
Yeah,
we're chasing the game.
Try to convince me otherwise. That was 1-0.
Yeah.
Even the commentators were saying that is if his fingerprints didn't, if he didn't put his fingerprints on that ball, it was in the net.
That's perfect placement.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, so everyone,
it was like
held their breath at that point, like, oh God, here we go. We're down 1-0, and then Cornell makes a save. I'm like, thank you, sir. That's all I can say.
I told you I was listening to the radio broadcast, and when it hit the post, I mean, I'm listening to Matt start to scream, that it hit the post, and all I could hear is Steve Jolly sighing with a breath of relief, and I mean, like audibly on air, you could hear him like let out a breath. He thought it was 1-0.
Yeah,
everybody in the stands thought it was 1-0.
1-0.
Yeah, and it was like. Yeah. You want to talk about that would have flipped the game completely. I mean, we're looking at Nashville had the best defense in MLS, fewest goals allowed. Right, we're going up against a team that obviously doesn't score a lot either, but they have weapons, right, and they can score. Now we have a pretty formidable defense ourselves,
which nobody talks about. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
I mean, okay, when you have when you have the season that you have with the New York Red Bulls, Daniel, things like that don't pop up, among beat writers like ourselves. But we talk about this all the time. We always say to other beat writers on other teams and go, if I'm my squad and I'm facing your squad, I don't want to face your squad if they score first. And that's the thing, the hallmark of the Red Bulls, why having a good start, and you've said this many times in many of your columns, is not just important, but critical. Because once they get that goal, you're in for a long day. I mean, and people don't talk about that. Do you feel that that's the microcosm of this? Their season was inconsistent, as we say here at the podcast. They've been consistently inconsistent when it comes, to their performance. When they're on, it's fun to watch. When they're off, they're awful. But one thing is except for the Philadelphia game, they've been in the matches even late. I mean, the Philadelphia game, of course, they got walked out the club. Okay, they scored a goal, couldn't hold it. Philly just said, "Oh, you scored a goal. How cute." Then they scored 4 after that. I mean, Philly's a different level. They get the beast mode whenever Red Bulls score on them for some crazy reason. But then again, that's something they have to expect. But my question to you, Daniel, is why do you feel that no one talks about the defense, New York's defense, enough?
I just don't know. I think they're just focusing on the offense too much. Obviously, we all know when we watch these games, like that's why when I predict scores, usually I'm like, oh, it's gonna be 0-0, 1-0, because I know our defense is good. Like if we were able to just average close to 2 goals a game this season, we'd be a top 5 team in the conference. Like it's not even a question. Like our defense is that solid. Now, obviously, most of the attention when they look at Red Bull is, oh, they can't score. They can't score. So they probably know we can defend, obviously. I mean, we have JMI, Andres Reyes, Sean Nealis, and then whoever's at right back that day. And then Carlos Cornell in the net. Everybody knows from a Red Bull perspective that we can defend. It's just about scoring for us.
Right. And of course, on Twitter, this is what this is the question that I know. In fact, this is something that I tell the folks. Also in the discussion group, and like, okay, you get mad because you see Barlow in the starting 9, but take a look at that bench. Who do you got? Okay, your 3 best attacking pieces. Okay, Van Zier, Morgan, and of course, Goma gone. Okay, gone for the season. We ain't seen these guys until maybe 2024. Yeah. If hamstring injuries are very hard to heal, I can attest to that. I had that. Trust me, it nearly sidelined my baseball season, my career. But maybe we'll see those guys next year. So whoever is left on the bench, you got to say, okay, Elias, next man up. Okay, and he's performed admirably. Do I think he's the best option? No. Okay, he's still working on that. I think he's a little young. He tries too hard. My problem with Elias is that he needs to simplify the match a little more. Okay, he needs to lead the game to him, because as long as he does that, I'm not saying he's lights out, but he's a much better threat than most people give him credit for. Same thing with Barlow. Barlow, he does his job, okay, the way he's supposed to do, as a target forward. When it comes to, even when he was with New York Red Bull II, your passes better be on the money, or it's in the seats. It's everywhere else. It's probably in his mom's car, down the block, around the corner, across the street. I mean, that's always been him. But when he plays with guys who can put pinpoint passes in his direction against a guy who generally runs downhill, imagine that. You got someone 6'2" and 2 and change coming at you. First of all, I had to steel my nerve before I can figure out what type of shot he's going to unleash. Luckily, he can't hit the broadside of a barn. What I would like for him to do, if they're going to cut him, I hope not. I honestly hope not. I would like to have him spend some time in Red Bull 2 for about a bit, just to get his scoring boots sharpened. Okay. I don't feel that he's a liability, because people say, oh, well, Barlow sucks. Well, he wasn't the problem that night. As a matter of fact, he was probably the reason why Nashville was busy trying to chase him out of there, his defenders and something out of there, because of what he can provide. He causes a lot of problems in the defensive end, and it helps out in the midfield too. Speaking of which, the midfield consists of Omir Fernandez, you had Lukinis, you had Frankie Amaya, and of course, naturally, you had Daniel Ellerman. Mark, I'll ask you, these are the midfield contingent that had that night. Your thoughts on their performance?
Like I said, I thought Lukinis probably had one of his best games. I mean, he focused more on playing the game than the theatrics and the dramatics of when he got knocked down. And he also found places to not get knocked down. And that was important. He was moving around. He was getting to open spaces. And that's one of those things that we have harped on all season long. We get the ball in the final third, and, 6 guys standing around looking at each other. Like, move off the ball, do something. Excuse me. I mean, and
Carlos's pet peeve.
It's
pet peeve.
Like,
you want to see that gentle soul lose it?
Yeah.
Have guys stand around near the ball and don't do nothing, and he would just lose it. I mean, like, guys, move.
Yeah. No, it's like I watch a game and I can hear his voice in my head. It's yeah, and it's Miggy's voice. I hear it too. But yeah, like I said, Lukinis, obviously, I think he played a really good game. Omir, we said, like, he just wasn't his usual self. We saw it, and I'm glad that he got it as far into the game as he did. Frankie, like I said, he took a couple shots, and I don't know where he was shooting the ball to, and he was shaking his head afterwards.
Right.
Daniel held his ground. I mean, when you look at the guys that they have up front, all right, he did, I think a workmanlike job, stand his ground, and he's playing against guys who, he's given 5-6 inches to and 50, 60 pounds. And, I've watched him last year, and I thought to myself, God, this kid's got to eat. It's just, he's so skinny. I was like,
I didn't have the heart to say that to him. I didn't have the heart to say that to him. So put some muscle on your bro. I mean, I'm tired of you getting your butt kicked.
But like,
you got some. you got some scraps on you, man. But but
no, I had to, man. But like I said, and then like I said, Harper comes in. All right, he had the disconnect with Tolkien on that one pass.
Mhm.
All right, but the rest of the game, he did his job. He was where he was supposed to be. He hits the side of the net with his shot. All right, listen, he's not a world beater.
No.
He's not supposed to be our superstar.
No.
I love the kid personally. All right, but he came in. He did what he had to do. He was getting himself into positions. He was moving with the ball. He had, like I said, the one miscue with John. Other than that, I think he stood his ground and did his job. And Drew, Drew makes me want to pull my hair out. It's like, he forgets what position he's playing.
Well, he's playing, right? You put him in D mid, he's attacking. He attacks with the ball.
He thinks
what
he's
are you doing,
front.
Drew?
I'll tell you what.
Stop, Drew. The other way.
Let's be honest, man. If that ball had gone in, we would have all been chanting his name. We would have all been chanting his name with that ball. And he was what?
I'm
12 inches, 10 inches over the bar.
Yeah.
Most of these guys, like I said, 10, 12 rows back. That was. he really gave that.
Add a couple of feet to that. I'm like,
if you're
gonna. What's the saying that Jolly says, of course, on Red Bull Radio? If you're gonna
put it on frame,
put it on frame. I don't want to see balls in the seats.
How many? Well, I know we've had 2 this year that have gone in off goalkeeper miscues. Because you shoot, and occasionally they make the mistake.
Right.
You never know. But I have to say, I wasn't getting crazy with Drew on Saturday because we were in do or die mode. Right? We all knew what was going on in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that Columbus had taken the lead on Montreal. All right. And then, of course, as we got down to it, we knew that City had scored. And they were ahead of Chicago. And every result.
They wouldn't be able to advance. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to advance.
But they're not going to advance. But right. Chicago's taken out of the mix with the loss. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there going, we have to score. There's just no way, we have to score. And I think the guys on the team, once we hit the 80th minute, you started seeing the ball get moved every time. They were never passes back to the center backs.
No.
Once we reached that point, we were passing to the midfielders. And I'm like, ooh, imagine that. We're passing to the
finally.
Yeah, finally. It's almost like the midfield. It's almost like the midfielder stood up and stepped up and said, guys, we got to move.
Ain't no more games after this.
Yeah, that way.
You even had Andres Reyes was just motioning with his hands, saying, "Go forward, guys. Don't pass it back to me. Go forward." And speaking of Andres Reyes, can we please talk about the wonderful job he did of erasing both Mukhtar and Sturridge, especially Sturridge, okay? Those two were going at it all night long. Almost to the point where my boy Reyes hit the deck more than once, having to deal with that big body.
Concussed on that last
yeah.
That's why it took him an extra minute to get up.
I'm going to ask this question over, to our live audience right now. Vincent, Lisa, Tom, you've seen Andres Reyes when he played against Sturridge. Did you think that it was the key moment of the match? At least I thought I did, because keeping those two quiet, Daniel, is not simple.
Not at all.
It's like pick your poison, right? If we've seen Nashville over the years. Even if you hold down Sturridge, you got Mukhtar running wild in your D. Did you find that Reyes' performance was impressive?
For the most part, this whole season, Andres Reyes has been a top 5 center back personally to me in the whole league, and it kind of showed again. Obviously, Mukhtar got that one chance early, and he didn't bury it. Thank God. Yeah. But for the rest of the game, him and Sturridge, him and Sturridge were kind of quiet. And obviously you saw Sturridge get subbed out during the game, but Yeah, Reyes.
And look kind of frustrated because he had his
Yeah.
shots and didn't take it because he had the other big body right in front of his face, and he wasn't the immovable object even when he was on the ground, on his back.
Yeah.
So
And you can't forget Mukhtar's an MVP
he's a
caliber
talent
player. He's already
yeah.
won the award. He was probably up for it again this year. He's that guy. So
yeah, he's a talent and a half. I mean, he's the type of talent that I would kill my firstborn to have on, dressed up in red. But unfortunately, no. We can only hope that Hamlet and of course Schneider can able to find just equally of that, because of course naturally that's what MDG said. We're going to talk about that after the break, but first a little bit of homework here. The game, of course, ending, of course, 1-0. Of course, John Tolkien, JMI scoring the penalty kick 4 minutes into stoppage time, which brought everybody to their seat and everyone going nuts. The Red Bulls, 14 straight postseason appearances is now the longest streak in MLS history. Move over Seattle. They had 13 years prior, which ended last season. Okay, they qualified for the playoffs. It's also the longest in New York Metro area sports team in 2023. Now, I know a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in this, and that's fair and that's fine. But consider this, boys and girls. This franchise has been around since 28 years, okay? 28 seasons, and they only missed the playoffs 4 times. That's it. 4 times, okay? We're talking, we're talking, of course, naturally, 97, 99, 2002, and 2009. And they were 15 minutes away from number 5, okay? So when you look at it this way, naturally, this is the reason why it's getting into the playoffs is not an accomplishment in Major League Soccer. It's a requirement, in my view, because one, you can't win the championship if you don't get into the playoffs. That's just that simple, okay? And I know a lot of folks say, well, 14 years, this is the debate that I hate bringing up his name, but I'm going to do it anyway.
No.
I'm going to do it anyway.
No.
Bartosz Kowalski, once again. Okay, he's the one that gave us the K rule. Don't mention Kamala ever again. He pretty much hijacked this, also like Lisa, I like to hijack this podcast. I ain't going to do that again. But he had a point, though, okay? 14 years, and you came within a sniff, okay, of making the championship once in 2008 as the Western Conference champion. I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game, okay? So it's not for the lack of trying that these guys are trying to win a championship. But I think in the last 5 seasons, let's go back that, okay? Let's focus on that. The last 5 seasons, it was nothing but cameo appearances. I don't know about you, but that would piss off any fan in any sport, okay? You get to the playoffs just to get knocked out in the first round, then you do it again and again and again and again. That makes fans wonder, what are you doing this for? Just to get an extra payday? Is that it? And fans have a right to be annoyed. Fans have a right to be upset. And our head coach, Troy Lesane, he got it. He understood, okay, which is the reason why he said this. And I'm going to read this in its entirely. This is exactly what he said during the media availability. Now, I posted a little bit, of course, in the discussion group, but I'm going to read this in its entirely. I want to be clear about this. This is not a distraction from a season that isn't acceptable for our fans. Remember when I said championship mentality and you guys set the bar? Well, that's one hell of an accomplishment, okay, from your head coach, because we ain't celebrating when we made the playoffs, okay? That's all the years that I've been a Yankee fan. For me, it's World Series or bust. I know there's not a lot of Yankee fans out there, and they think my attitude is a sense of entitlement. But, I got 27 chips on them with my squad. How about yours, okay? But that's because for every championship we win, it's like, you see us give us ticker tape parade when we win the playoffs? No. Even if we win the pennant, we ain't giving you ticker tape parade for that. No, we give you ticker tape parade when you win the whole thing. That's the attitude that I want Red Bull fans to develop, okay? Because that's only going to be a positive reinforcement to the team. Because if you're not going to accept mediocrity, well, guess what? Neither will they. I'll continue. It's not acceptable to what's happened in this season, really, for that matter, the last 4 or 5 seasons. We need to do better as a club. This is a special club. I'm very happy to extend our history, but that does not distract us from the fact that we have to do better and put ourselves in a better position. And how we're going to do that is by investing more. And I don't mean just as a financial statement. I mean time, thoughtfulness, energy, and everything we do, because that's what the club deserves. And I think we have been well on our way over the last 6 months to really set the club in the right new direction. And we have a lot of more work to do. He does. Okay, they do. And this is something for me as an achievement. We got a match to play on Wednesday. That is a job at hand. And this is not the finish line for us. We wanted to create a new finish line. And believe me, that Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, is an opportunity to go beyond just getting in and sneaking in the playoffs. So if you're a player, okay, and you hear that from your head coach, which in many respects, we've had a lot of head coaches that don't even touch this subject, right? They don't even mention this at all. We finally get a head coach that said, you know what? I get you. I got you. Okay? Especially after the season we had. We ain't dancing around. I mean, they had a nice little get-together photo that they made the accomplishment because that was for them, they wanted to make the playoffs. They didn't want to be the squad that ended the streak. Okay, they didn't want to have that walk of shame around their necks, saying y'all f this up. Okay, they didn't want to be that crew. Okay, and the debate that came immediately after that, and this is probably the reason why I'm going to defend Bartos, is people think that this, some folks think that this is an accomplishment. It's not. Some people think that this is a successful season. I got news for you. It's not. Okay. Successful seasons, boys and girls, come with trophies. Okay. Trophies. That's a successful season.
Rings.
At least to me. Rings. Okay. Medals. Hardware. Something that you can see and touch. You remember how happy everybody was when they got the supporter shield? Well, that's your trophy. Okay, it's a trophy that you literally put your hands on. You can't put your hands on the cup. You can't put your hands on the Eastern Conference Championship trophy. Nope, that's reserved for the players that want it. But the supporter shield, that's yours. That's yours. And you literally get to take pictures with it. You literally get your hands on it. I had my hands on that trophy 3 times, and I got the photos to prove it. Okay? So, to me, even if they got knocked out, we got some silverware. And we go into the CCL.
Yeah.
Okay? In case anybody has forgotten, this season alone, Miami, despite the fact that they were rooted at the bottom of the table, silverware. Houston, silverware. Okay. LAFC, they didn't had a chance for silverware. Lost it to a club in Mexico. Okay. When it's all said and done, even if they get knocked out, even if you don't make the playoffs, it's still successful. You got some silverware because in this league, guess what you get with it? You get a trip to the CCL. You probably ask yourself some question. How does a team rooted in the bottom of the table, Miami, DC United, okay, wound up at the bottom of the table and still get to play in the CCL? Meanwhile, your team finished 4th place, 5th overall in the league. You don't get to go nowhere. Now, right, but then again, hey, as Miggy famously said, Miguel Nunez, our co-host, I don't make the rules.
Yeah, them's the rules.
I don't make the rules. That's how it is. It is what it is. Deal with it. So to me, a successful season is one that ends with a trophy, that ends with rings, that ends with medals around our heroes' necks. And the reason why I want people to raise the bar when it comes to a championship mentality is simple. Our season doesn't end in October. We want our boys playing December football. Okay? Yep. December football. And if, no one should be accepting mediocrity. No one. We shouldn't even be celebrating mediocrity. We shouldn't even be discussing it. But yet we do. There's some people who go, oh, it's okay. No, it's not. Now, does that mean we don't show up on Wednesday night as protest? No. Hell no. Not after our boys fought like hell to get there. You reward them with your presence and you give them your support. Even if you drop dead hate the owners. At the end of the day, it's about the boys on the pitch, not the brand on the shirt. Remember? They busted their butts to get there. In spite of people thinking they had no business being there. But there they are. Yep. 14 straight year. That's an accomplishment. That, like I said, not an accomplishment. It was a requirement. Okay, you're in. Now make a deep run. I think this team has it in them to do just that.
You got all the momentum.
Okay, they're rolling in with momentum. There's a lot of guys just standing still, just simply playing out the string, and it's very hard to switch it on, especially this. And have you seen the schedule? Which we will talk about this, after the break. Have you seen the schedule? You're playing 3 games, 5 days apart, and then you have a cool-out period because of international break. MLS, these guys would mess up a boiled egg if they could. I mean, I don't get these guys sometimes. But we're going to talk about, of course, our game Wednesday night. And, of course, Gotham FC. They did some big doings down there in Cary, North Carolina. Hey, fellas, the playoff drama doesn't end here in Metroville, but we're going to go for the final scores of Major League Soccer Week 38 one last time before we go into playoff mode. We're going to be back in 30 seconds. Stick around. Right. Of course, our reward for making over the playoff line, and as a bonus, they gave you guys a home game. Guess what? We get to play the 8th best team in the Eastern Conference, which happens to be Charlotte FC. Now, the last 2 times we faced these dudes, Mark, games have been pretty tight. We lost the first one over a mistake. The second one, we didn't get a win, but hey, it was a well-earned draw. Head to head for the last, they've only met 5 times. Okay. We got 2 wins. They got 1. They were tied twice. So it's going to be a very, very tight match. This is a one and done, folks. This is not going to be a playoff series, which means if everything is tied when it's all said and done, we're going to extra time and going to penalty kicks. It's going to be a wild and crazy Wednesday night. Daniel, I'll start with you. We've seen Charlotte play, play all season long, and despite the fact they never even cracked the top 10, but they do have some quality up front. What do you see as the biggest challenge, or in this case, this is a question we're going to ask. We're going to ask the coach tomorrow during the media availability. What do you see is the problem for New York Red Bull on Wednesday night?
I mean, the obvious answer is Karol Swiderski. The first 2 times we played them, he wasn't on the field.
But he's back now.
He's back now. He's going to be here, and he's dangerous. Obviously, we've played these type of strikers before. Obviously, last week with Sturridge and Mukhtar, but Swiderski has that something to him as well. Obviously, he's an international player with Poland, a deadly goal scorer when he's given one opportunity. So these center backs got to be on point on Wednesday, or if we make one mistake, it's gonna be one of those nights again.
The defense, we talk about the team's defense a lot, which is something that literally cannot be ignored. The Red Bulls have posted a 10-2-2 mark when scoring the first goal of a match. Okay. Mark, do you see this team, despite the fact that they have scoring, we highlighted their scoring
issues?
Yes, we do. But is that going to be a hindrance, or is that going to be a headache come this match?
Well, I mean, you talk about the two matches we played them this year. The first match was back in March. I mean,
right.
We are not the same team as we were in March. All right. We had a 1-0 lead at halftime. We had the Reyes own goal late in the game, ended up costing us the game, the win. We ended up with a draw. The second game was scary because we gave up 2 goals quick. And a lot of people were thinking, if you watch that game on MLS replay, you watched the stands empty at halftime. I mean, there was probably about 5,000 or 6,000 people that went home.
Oh, they were bad that first half.
And it was Van Zier got subbed in at the start of the second half. You got a goal from him, and then you get another goal, bang bang within 5 minutes, and it's 2-2, and then it was a knife fight the rest of the way. And
for what I remember, it was a very hot day down in Charlotte. I mean, it was.
But that's like I said. But like I said, but that was one of those games where suddenly, we were home for that game.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, but that was.
I mean, the first game, it was a very hot day. That
right.
I mean,
but like I said,
he was off that
March
turf.
It was hot. Yeah. And you're on that turf. We hate turf, but that was like I said. But then you see our game in June. We haven't faced these guys since then. And obviously, we're going to be in for an interesting play. I mean, an interesting game Wednesday. Obviously, I think we can debate back and forth all we want about how we ended up where we are, but the bottom line here is this is the team we have. This is the roster you have to work with, and Troy. So, like his hands are tied. I mean, there's nobody else. People say, oh, why is Barlow starting? But
how many times I've asked the same, never got a reply. Well, who do you got? I mean,
there's nobody else. I mean, who else are you going to start?
He can conjure up a world-class forward with the flick of his wrist. It doesn't work that way, guys.
But you look at the interesting thing. I think Ansley had it on her Twitter. I can't find it right now, but we've scored. I think a third of our goals have been scored in the last 6 games for the entire season. Right? We've gotten a third of our points in the last 6 games. Like, how did this happen? Well, Troy's been working with this team since he took over in April. All right.
Each player, each play.
Yeah, and we've all seen how hard he works. We see that he's dedicated. His statement that you read earlier shows this. He gets it. He knows what's going on, all right? And I don't know how far we can go, all right? But the one thing we have to win Wednesday. I mean, that's where it starts. I mean, I've people have said, oh, but we're going to have to go face Cincinnati. Yeah, and
deal with it.
That's how the schedule works. If you win,
if I'm Cincinnati, I wouldn't like facing these guys one more time. I mean, with them again.
They do not want to see us either.
Them again.
They don't want to see us. They don't like us. We don't like them. Okay, their fans do not like us. All right, and that's back to the USL days. Right, because we ruined their day in Open Cup play a few years back.
The biggest day in their history. We just came in and messed it up, and they have not forgotten and have not forgiven us since.
And if I was one of their fans, I wouldn't forgive us either. But the bottom line is we're facing a fairly formidable offense in Charlotte. All right. And their defense isn't that bad either. But at the same time, why were they at the bottom of the table? One of the things that I found interesting, Sasha mentioned it during the pregame. Because I watched, I'll be honest, I did not watch the last 4 games live. I listened to them on the radio. I was at work and I could not watch them on TV. Saturday, I was home, but I chose not to watch the game on TV. I chose to keep with the tradition of listening to Red Bull Radio. And obviously it worked because we won. But, they say, if it's working, don't break it. So I said, I'm not going to turn the TV on. But I watched the pregame. Sasha said something interesting. You have 5 teams vying for 2 spots at the end of the season on decision day. MLS loves that. There's drama. There's all these possibilities. You have all these scenarios playing out. And Charlotte dropping points to Miami on Wednesday night last week obviously helped us tremendously. And that took out like a third of the scenarios for decision day, because I was looking at what Mark Fishkin had posted and I was like, dear God, you need like a degree in mathematics to know what's going on here. If this one does this and if this one does that, oh my, it's like, okay, let's get through the first Miami-Charlotte matchup and see what's going to happen when we get to the end of Wednesday night. And once that happened, I'm like, all right, win and we're in. And that was the bottom line.
Right.
Whether we host it or not, winning it in. And I said it when we were tossing around, stuff, during the week, when we were, talking with each other. And I had said the crew is going to want this game because they want to guarantee themselves a top 4 spot. And I posted up earlier, on the YouTube page, with everybody commenting, Garber's rules. That's, it's his game. He sets the rules. We play by the rules. If they say 8th place play-in game, you're in the play. Well, then we're in the playoffs. Some are, half 2/3 of the conference gets in. Okay, but that's the point. We got in, and not only did we get in, we went from being out, and inside of 3 minutes, we're hosting. We have to. Honestly, we have not had the fortress for the last couple of years. We've got to show that the fortress exists. And I think if we get 15,000 plus,
or even 10, I'll be happy with 10.
Listen,
10K.
I bet you 10,000 can make noise like 20. Just don't give us rally towels. Just don't give us the rally towels.
No rally towels, please.
Rally towels.
That seems to be the death knell every time we get a rally
towel. I have it over my shoulder here. If you look behind me, right? It says run as one, not one and done.
Right.
Okay. That's the thing I don't want to see. I don't want us to get into this game, lose, and then everybody starts bitching and moaning.
Well, they're going to bitch. I'm sorry. They're going to bitch and moan anyway. I mean, it's just the way it is.
It's everybody just, and we get in the playoffs. Well, what did you want us to do? Did you want to stay home? My son was so excited when the game was over, and I told him, I said, guess where we're going Wednesday night? And, he was like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no. I said, we're going to the arena. He's like, I can't say it on air. And he shouldn't have said it because he's 15. But, his response showed me the boy was excited about the idea that we're going to be going to see a playoff game. But we thought we were done. And somebody else had posted up. Even if, all right, great, we win. We have 0 chance of hosting MLS Cup. 0.
Yeah, unless
we are the bottom team.
Well, unless we and Vancouver are the last 2 teams standing, but even then,
right. Do you want to face Vancouver?
Brian White hat trick.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
To your point, Mark.
To your point, Mark.
As far as Charlotte is concerned, as far as their offense, they are the 4th worst in the East. They are the 7th worst overall. So while they can score.
Right. They also
defending is somewhat of a challenge with these guys.
Well, we saw that in the second half in June.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
we scored two in 10 minutes.
And the two goals that were scored on that very day was one from a gentleman by the name of Ben Bender. He's injured, so that's one piece of the puzzle that's not around. But you're right, Swiderski, he's a different beast. Okay, he's got to be kept under wraps, and even still, Dan, he gets his off. I mean, you can have two guys on him, and I've seen him. You have two guys on him, and he still gets his shot. If he's not, he's dishing out assists. He's a whole package. So, as he goes, so does the team. But there's more, of course. It's not just Swiderski. You have to deal. A lot of their front guys. You have Enzo Capetti, who another guy that scares me half to death. You got Oren Mackenzie Gaines, you got Curran Vargas. Those guys really know how to cause problems in their defense. Okay, Ashley Westwood, Nick Scardina, Brandon Cambridge. Of course, Ben Bender's out for a while. Brian Romero. This is a quality infield and a quality forward side. So if I'm the Red Bulls, I'm keeping a close eye on these guys. But the good news is that they played the same game we did, okay, some games ago. So both guys are coming in with short rest. So it depends on, do you see that the quick start by the Red Bulls critical? At least get a goal and then hammer it down on D? Or do they try to hang around and eventually wait for the eventual knockout blow?
Nah, they're gonna need that first goal, because if we're playing a game with Charlotte and trying to hang on, eventually they might get one of those half chances and Swiderski taps it in. Like, he gets an inch on Sean Nealis just behind his shoulder and taps it in. So Red Bull is going to need to be on the gas early, and they're going to need, if they can get a goal inside of 30 minutes, that would set them up for the rest of the game.
All right, moving on, as they say. There was another game that took place on Sunday that everyone basically held their breath, and especially if you're a Gotham FC fan, and you should be this brings a smile to your face. Gotham FC got past North Carolina Courage by a score of 2-0. Now, this helps them to move on to the semifinals versus Portland. That will take place on November 5th. Sheehan with a goal in 45 minutes. And then you had scoring basically right in the capper, right in, of course, into stoppage time. This was up until this point, gentlemen, and then just sort of looking at the recap. Up until this point, North Carolina Courage guys didn't lose at home in 14 straight games. So when I saw that stat line, I said, "Ooh, somebody's due." I mean, they walked in there and just simply said, spoiled the party. Even they had they had on-field mics because they were complaining that the Gotham contingent was banging their drums just a little too loud. Jennifer Muller and the crew made the trip down to Cary, and they were the only section among many cheering in seafoam green and black. Mark, we talked about Gotham extensively during the last couple of seasons. Last season was a season that they would like to forget. Okay, but
everybody wanted to forget last season.
Everybody wanted to forget.
I don't know what happened last season. That was bad.
Yeah,
this year, listen. This year, the top four teams I say in the women's league, they kept bouncing back and forth as to who was going to take the top spot. And
that's true. Even Gotham had the top spot for about a bit, and then they slipped.
I mean, but
almost slipped the way out of it.
But and unfortunately, they ended up in fifth.
Right.
But they make the trip, and they get the win, and it was interesting. They had it on regular TV instead of on Paramount Plus. CBS Sports Network. And for those of us that have still traditional cable, I think the vast majority of us do have the CBS channel. so we were able to watch it last night, and it was exciting going to watch, and the late goal obviously seals it. Now the question becomes going to Portland, and obviously they were there a couple weeks ago, and
Not long ago.
it was, I guess, 2-3 weeks ago. I think they were in Portland, and unfortunately, things didn't go their way. Now, can they turn it around and can they play? I'd like to think so. I think they have the talent this year that they didn't have last year, and it showed in their, obviously in the standings, but the eye test, as they call it. When we joke around, we often refer back to the 2018 season for our beloved Red Bulls. The first half of the season under Jesse, the team didn't look the same as when the gym coach was in charge. There was a difference. The players did not play the same way, and the girls, it's the same thing. You could see the urgency, that you could see the drive this year.
Yeah.
Look,
they want this for Allie. They seriously want
it.
They do.
They do, and it's not
they
just
want this for Allie.
Yeah,
they want to put this on. They want to end her season with her,
holding some hardware.
Top, with some hardware.
Doesn't everybody want to hold hardware at the end of their career?
Of course they do.
You mentioned earlier in the show we were talking. You were talking about the Yankees and the fact that they do have the 27 trophies. And I was born in the Bronx. I've loved my team from the Bronx probably since birth or thereabouts. But my wife, she loves Derek Jeter, and the only game that he's ever played in his career, they said, where there was no possibility of him going to the postseason, was his final game at Yankee Stadium, or Yankee Stadium. But that ended up becoming the dramatic Hollywood ending of his career. Getting a walk-off single. He didn't get a trophy, but he already had obviously several. But that's his whole attitude, his whole career was, if we don't win the World Series, it's a waste of a season. And I'm not getting any younger. So that was important. Like I said, that my kids have heard that, and and I feel the same way about our team. And I think the Gotham girls are starting to have that same desire this year too. They want that trophy, and badly, and it's shown in their play, and it's just night and day what we saw last year versus what we've seen this year from these girls. And I hope to God they stay on this run, and I hope they get it.
And of course, naturally, they play against, as you know, Portland Thorns. They are the number 2 team. They finished second behind San Diego Wave, which, if all goes to plan, they'll be hosting the NWSL Championship. So, what will be the odds? Okay, they knocked off North Carolina Courage, which they were the ones that finished third. They got a chance to knock out number 2, and when it's all said and done, they'll be facing, of course, the number 1 team, of course, which is San Diego Wave. So that game will take place November 3rd. Kickoff, it's at 7:00, and I believe it's going to be shown, of course, on television. The NWSL Championship will be, I believe, on CBS proper. All right, and now we come to the very dangerous part, of course, on our show: predictions. Daniel, I'm going to have you the honor going first. How do you see the final score going on Wednesday night versus Charlotte FC? Who goes on? Who goes home?
Well, obviously, this is a Red Bull show, and I'm very positive. I'm actually thinking we can get a result going home, because we're playing with house money at this point. Like a couple of weeks ago, personally, I thought we were going to be done. Yesterday, on Saturday, I thought we were going to be done. I was like, all right, no more games.
Never say die, New York Red Bulls.
But of course, they get that magical late result, and how do we know? This could be the year that we actually do something. So, but it starts on Wednesday.
Hope and optimism doesn't exactly exist in the discussion group, not if certain individuals have anything to say about it. Mark, your prediction, man.
Well, I know I was off on the score for Saturday, but I was not off on the fact that I said it was going to be dramatic. There was going to be crying and screaming and cursing and God knows what else. and that they were going to make us wait till the final moments to sweat this one out. I honestly, I think it's well within our ability to win this game. I don't feel confident that we're going to score 2 goals, but somehow I think we will get out of here either 2-0 or 2-1. But I'm not sure if we can hold them to a clean sheet. But I think we find a way. I think we got to find one early, and I think we need to find one late. But
I too have the number 2 in my prediction, but I'm looking at 2-2, and then we squeak by on penalties.
Is there extra time, or is it go straight to
yes
pen?
There's extra time and it goes straight to pen.
Right.
So I'll say 2-1, we win in extra time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to see 2-2. I mean, both teams, I see them emptying the clip. Okay. Yeah. They're not just going to sit around and say, oh, we'll hold our energy until we make it to Cincinnati. It ain't gonna happen. Okay, Cincinnati is sitting there like a catbird seat. They got the number 1 seed. They got the number 1 headband as far as the supporter shield is concerned. So they're just waiting for the survivor of that series, and they're gonna eat them up when it's all said and done. If it's Charlotte, I think they got a better chance of moving on to the next round. If it's New York, it's going to be hell to pay, because even when they're supposedly dead, tired, or anything else, New York is just going to give them fits. It's going to be another night fight or two. It's probably going to be worse because Red Bull's coming in with an agenda, and they're looking to knock them out for a change and moving on. I wouldn't put past them to do so. I mean, we're not going to talk about Cincinnati right now. That's another, as they say, that's another show for another time. But I do think we match pretty well with Charlotte, because everyone likes to call these guys world beaters, and I had to remind people Charlotte wasn't that much better than the Red Bulls. I mean, you're talking about basically the 8th and 9th ranked team in the East. I mean, and they're basically fighting out for the for the chance to get slaughtered or slain by the number 1 seed. So we may move on to the next round, but I guarantee you the next round it ends, okay? Because we may not have the energy or the strength to hang with these guys in 2 straight games. But like you said, you never know. It's gonna be fun. I would love to see 20K, but I'll be happy with oh, excuse me. There is no extra time in wild card game. It goes straight to penalties. Thank you for letting me know.
Well,
I thought it
1-1 and we went on pens.
Yeah, that's why I said I mean, I do see us. I see 2, I do see 2-2. Okay, I do see 2-2 between. I mean, there's gonna be some goals. Okay, but it's gonna go into extra time, and it's not extra time. It's gonna go into penalties where we're gonna squeak by. Okay. And we'll see how it goes from there. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that they can able to finish this out in regular time, and then move on from there. Because Lord knows, the fans really could. I mean, they need something to bring us, and nothing else but to bring a smile to their faces and everything. Before we sign off, a very happy birthday to one of our, our co-hosts. Of course, in the press box, Silvana Galvanes, Bundesheim, Tim Gale, of course, I remember Ken Goldstein, and of course, they did mention Jennifer Mueller, who went down in Cary, North Carolina, and got one hell of a birthday present the day before, seeing in live and in person Gotham FC dispatching, of course, the Carolina Courage will now take on the Portland Thorns. So that's it. Daniel, my thanks to you, my friend. I will see you on Wednesday night along with the rest of the press corps. This is going to be interesting, to say the least. Of course, no matter what happens, of course, we will have a podcast after that. We don't know if it's going to be the postseason postscript, but we will be there. Myself, Carlos, and Miggy. Hopefully, it's not going to be the end, but in any case, we'll be there. See where it goes from here, as they say. Folks, be there on Wednesday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you guys there. And of course, we'll see you guys next week when we all put this, of course, together. Hopefully, we don't put this again. We'll be put to bed. We'll talk of, hopefully, we can even talk about the next round should we get there. For Mark Coates and, of course, our special guest, Daniel Rebain, this is Gary Rebain saying thank you guys so much. Remember, if you missed the live show, no big deal. You can able to catch it on demand on, of course, on Spotify and, of course, our YouTube channel the very next day. And if you have any questions, comments, and, of course, ideas on how to make the show a better one, don't forget our email address, which is rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. We welcome all of your comments and such. And basically, it is your show to make it better. So, thanks very much for joining us in the last hour. We'll hope to see you guys next week. Hope to see you guys Wednesday night. Let's go, Red Bulls. I mean, it's up to you now. Let's move on to the next round. Till then, I'm calling it 2-2 and sneaking out, of course, in penalties. I hope
we will win.
Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye for now.